the big story that's been kind of bubbling below everything is the Tyreek Hill arrest video came out. It's like 4 minutes long. We're not going to show the whole thing, or I think we're not going to show any of it. But if you haven't watched it yet, it's worth a watch. It's pretty disturbing just how quickly the whole thing goes from pulling a guy over. There's lots of there's several different videos. I don't know if you've seen it. Like there's one where the cop pulls him over. There's another one where they're like trying to get him out of trying to get him to roll down his window. There's one where they get him out of the car. There's one where they handcuff him and then ask him to sit down. And he says, "I just had surgery on my knee," and they just basically tackle him.
The one you sent me is like, it has all of that. It's like a 4 minute long video.
There's several different ones, but it's worth watching as much as you can of it just to see it. I thought the one that stuck with me is when his teammates, Calais Campbell and Jonnu Smith or somebody pulls up. They're all pulling into the stadium. His teammates are driving in. They see this happening, and they pull over also. And then the cops are like, "You guys got to get out of here. Come on, go. Let's go." And they're like, "No." And he's yelling at them, "Don't leave. Jonnu, don't stay. And they're like, the cops come over to them, and they're like, "We're going to arrest you guys." And Calais Campbell's just standing there. I mean, Calais Campbell's 6'9", 300-something pounds. Like, he's pretty intimidating looking just standing there. At one point, do you think do you think that at some point, if I'm one of those cops, I'd be thinking, all right, I got the whole Miami Dolphins team over here now. Like, this is not a good look for anybody involved here. Yeah, but at that point, you're just so deep into it, you just got to keep going, I guess.
I don't get into the mind of law enforcement. Those officers were bad at their job. I don't know how often or how long or how many times those officers are bad at their job, but they were bad on that day. And that's shameful what ended up happening. And not just because, to your point, Lang, you're on this particular assignment probably because, like, you know who Dolphins players are, right? So you know that's Tyreek Hill you have pulled over. You know that's Calais Campbell getting out of the car. You know, at the very least, these are football players. They're going into this stadium.
You got to know at least one of these four guys is
even so, to put that to the side, even if they were nobody, even if it was me out there, somebody say, "Hey, don't knock on my window." Now, Tyreek didn't say it in the gentlest way, but he said, "Hey, don't knock on my window." How does that escalate to a point to where you, as a police officer, are just like, get out the car, dragging this man out of the car?
We put the window back up. And that's when they keep knocking.
When an officer walks away from you, Lane, do you keep the window down or you roll it up?
I kept it down. I got pulled over recently, and I kept it down. But
I've done both.
Tyreek's excuse was in that situation was, and he tells the cop, he's like, "Look, I don't want the people walking by to take photos of me." And, sure, I get it. I was actually thinking, I did you mentioned Ludacris recently, last week on the show. I did a story for XXL years ago, and I went to Atlanta, and I was writing a Ludacris features when he was starting out. He picked me up at the airport, and we got pulled over by the police because his windows were tinted. It was just me and him in the car.
Yeah.
The policeman came over. He pulls down the window. He's like, "Look, you can't have your windows tinted this way." And Chris, talked to the guy, and the cop ended up recognizing him, and he spoke to the man, and eventually nothing happened. And he was like, "Look, I have to have my windows tinted like this. People know who I am, and I don't want to be spotted around town." And the police officer was understanding. He's like, "Look, yeah, I get it, but there's a law that, is da-da-da." Eventually nothing happened. We got out of that. But nobody in this situation seemed to be able to de-escalate things. There was a tweet this morning I saw from a retired NYPD detective. And I thought this was interesting. He said, "As a police officer, half the battle is always de-escalation. You write the summons, you walk away from the vehicle. Who cares if he puts his window up? You have his ID." This guy's a big Rican man on Twitter. "It's not our job to teach grown people manners. Being rude isn't a crime. You should say, yo, man, sweet ride. Why are you driving so fast? Slow down. Have a good game." I've let bona fide criminals I'd locked up in the past go for similar violations. His friend pulls over to see what's going on. "Why are you so aggressive with him? Your friend's being detained. Please keep driving. It's unsafe for you to park there." Because there are enough legitimate criminals out there to worry about. These police officers were unprofessional, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were bad at their job. They're bad police officers. Those are the ones, when people get mad at police officers, those are the ones that we are talking about.
Yeah.
It's them. Because that's spot on. You come over, you've already got the license. You know it's time. If you didn't know it when you saw him, again, it doesn't matter who he is.
Yeah.
But if you didn't know when you saw him, you know because you got his license now. You got his license. Why does his window need to be rolled down? Why does him asking you, that's an expensive car. Why does him saying forcefully, hey, stop knocking on my window. Right?
Yeah.
That's fine. That's not a crime. Just write me the ticket so I can get on with my day. Rude, but it's fine. It's not a crime. Write the ticket, give him the ticket, and then call it a day. But then to pull him out the car, put him on the ground, calling.
And the way they put him on the ground.
Well, listen, there's not a gentle way to put people on the ground.
Well, they said they say, "Will you please sit down?" And he's like, "I just had surgery on my knee."
I'm talking about pulling him out the car first. We hadn't even gotten to him over there in that moment. But pull him out the car, put him on the ground. He's like, "Yo, what is going on here?" He's on the phone with Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, but that could be, forget the names.
Yeah.
He could be on the phone with his father or his mother, like, hey, being detained right now. Looks like I'm getting arrested. Help. Like, okay, that shouldn't lead to anything escalating either.
Also,
From that point, once he stands up and you move him to the side, to your point, Lane, you don't need to kick somebody to get them to sit down.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, sit down.
I think detained's a misnomer too, because when being detained apparently in police parlance means they're allowed to handcuff you and talk to you about this stuff. Like, I don't know what being detained means. Like, it looks to me like you're getting arrested. If I'm Tyreek Hill, I'm thinking, oh, they're arresting me.
Yeah, it doesn't. The wording doesn't matter. Once the handcuffs go on, you call it what you want to call it. The handcuffs are on. You got him to pull over. You got him out the car. You got his driver's license. You gonna kick him?
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Come on. Like, there's that too often that happens. I've had a gun pulled on me, just a routine seatbelt stop. Like, hey, why is that the way this escalates?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I've been pulled out of cars for routine stops. Why is that the way things need to escalate in your mind?
Yeah.
I'm not super famous. I'm a solid B celebrity in Memphis, Tennessee, right? And out, that depends on where in Memphis I'm going. You're an A minus.
I don't know.
People know
but I got pulled over and I put the window down, had my hands on the steering wheel, and spoke to the officer, and he let me go.
It's not about that officer. Those are the officers we're talking about, because I've had good interactions
that's the
with
thing.
police
Is like,
officers
so
also.
I could understand, like, also watching this whole video, like, maybe one of these guys is having a bad day, right? And he doesn't let things de-escalate. He makes it worse, right? It wasn't just one guy.
It's three other
That's the
ones.
thing. Like, they were all having a bad day, I guess. I don't know. But there's a bunch of guys who did not de-escalate this situation. If it's just one guy, you're like, all right, and if the other guys come in and try to, like, help out, de-escalate, I get it.
Take a couple steps back. We got it from here.
Yeah. Like, hey, man, calm down. Like,
what is,
there was none of that. It was like everybody was making it worse.
Yeah.
And each guy who gets involved kind of takes it to another level.
At one point with Campbell, he's talking to one officer, and that officer is, hey,
there was one guy who was like,
you got to keep it moving. And then the other one walks up with the handcuffs, turn around, you're getting arrested. We're not going to keep talking to you. It's like, wait, why?
Yeah.
What do you mean? That I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to him. He and I are fine. I've had a situation where officers showed up to somebody I know's house.
Yeah.
Domestic type situation popping off. And he and the girlfriend at the time, they were at it. A window had been broken. It was a bad scene.
Yeah.
It was a bad scene. And what I appreciated about those officers, when they walked in, they didn't make it worse, and eventually they calmed everything down.
Yeah.
Right? Like, those interactions are what we expect police officers to do all the time.
I think that's the hope for in the best case scenario.
Not a best case scenario. Not a best case scenario. That's your job. Your job is to, when you come in, everything calms down. That should be the norm, not a best case scenario. The de-escalation is the job. Routine stops should not lead to people being pulled out of their car, put face first in the hot pavement, and then kicked. That's not what de-escalation looks like. That's not the job of police officers. That is not that shouldn't be allowed to, the thought that, de-escalation is the best case scenario should not be the thought as it pertains to policing in America. It should be the norm. It should be, okay,
No,
I'm
I
coming
agree
in
with you.
here
I'm just saying that.
I'm just talking to the people out there.
But it rarely is.
I'm not talking to you particularly. I'm talking to the people out there.
Why are you pointing at me?
Well, I'm pointing at I said I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people out
no,
there.
but
Like,
I'm
making
saying,
love to the camera
but
right
it
now,
rarely
like,
is, right? You know what I mean? Like that.
It's
from what we've seen, and
I don't want to say rarely. It's not often enough. Is de-escalation the first thing you go to?
It's a good word,
right? Like in the Scheffler situation. That one, another one of those times where, hey, man, hey, stop, calm down, take a deep breath. understand that this dude is probably going to be a pompous asshole to you. Eat it. Send him on his way. Give him the ticket. You don't need to be pulling dudes out of the car. You don't need, in his case, Scheffler was arrested.
And in both situations, like the police are there specifically to help control the traffic around a situation where Scheffler and Tyreek Hill were the two guys who are supposed to be at the place. Like they're literally there because the whole thing is for these guys, and somehow they're the ones who get in trouble for trying to get to do their job, and they can't do it. Somebody in the chat was pointing out how like Tyreek in the press conference said, you know, what I kept thinking was, what if I'm not Tyreek Hill? And I thought like part of what was cool was like when his teammates all show up, like none of them ever go, we're on the Miami Dolphins. No one ever says that's Tyreek Hill. They don't try to like big time anyone, do anything. They're just like, look, officer, please calm down. What are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. And when you watch it back, like when you watch the body cam footage, those guys all come off as the normal people. The police are the ones who come off pretty poorly. I mean, that might even be a generous way of saying it.
If
in this situation,
it's a tough job. Like
not making
an excuse.
100%.
It's a tough job. But understand this: if I'm not calling you, I'm not happy to see you. Right? Like, who's happy to see the police officer behind them? I can't think of a single person that's happy.
We don't
to
have
see
Officer Friendly anymore.
No,
remember Officer Friendly?
Yeah, we're not happy to see. So when you pull somebody over for a routine stop, they're going to be angry. They're going to be frustrated. They might even be, like I said, a bit of a jackass to you. Again, de-escalate the situation. You got what you need. Write the ticket. Send them on their way. Don't pull them out the car like that. Don't kick them to try and get them to sit down. Don't pit them face first. It's Miami in the summertime. Come on. How hot was that pavement?
Yeah.
Don't do that, man. That's all of them should be under investigation after this.
Apparently they are.
Good.
Or they're all off the thing.
Good.
So now I think we got to get Tyreek Hill and Scotty Scheffler together now. Some sort of like, maybe the two of them can
heal the world.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Like some sort of diss track or something. I don't know.
The Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt, live every weekday at 8 a.m.